It was Labor Day weekend of 2003 on Saturday morning. And it started off like a typical Rogers morning where we slowly wake up and I'd go down and prepare pancakes for my kids, and make Mickey Mouse pancakes for my kiddos and chocolate chip pancakes for Melissa. Although we were on a bit of a schedule because we had to drive 3 hours to Wichita, Kansas for a wedding. It was raining most of the day and the trip down there. After the reception, we stepped outside to bid farewell to the bride and groom, and it was still pouring down rain. We loaded up the van around 8 o'clock, and Melissa wanted to drive first.
The Labor Day weekend was a soggy washout for millions of Americans.
The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning.
It was pouring buckets now. I mean, just teeming torrential rain. I'd check from time to time and say, you doing okay, Melissa? Yeah, I'm all right. Wipers were going full blast. You couldn't hardly see, but we tried to follow other cars and their taillights and stay on the road that way. And without realizing it, right around 9 p.m., we splashed into a flash flood, and it was up to our bumper, and it was just unreal what we were facing. It was almost disbelief at first, and what do we do? And we called one of our friends from church to pray.
And so I picked the phone up, and there was a voice on the other end. She's just like, Debbie, I need you to get hold of the prayer line, and I need you to pray. The water's up to the seats. We're in trouble here. And I'm like, you can't get out of the van. And she's like, no, the water's too high. And us with 4 kids, what are we going to do? Carry two kids in each arm? What if we dropped one? No, we can't do that.
While we were on that phone call, the water had risen so high that it pressed our van up against the concrete median. And so we were completely trapped, and the engine had stalled at this point. And we suddenly felt the van pick up and felt like we were riding a wave. And we were taken across 2 lanes of traffic, and I just remember a big hard thud like we hit something. My guess is it was the culvert, possibly. Melissa was still on the phone, and she just yelled, Jesus save us, Jesus save us. And we said, we got to kick out the window.
I remember Robert saying, Melissa, switch places with me. And I was like, Melissa, I'll call and I'll get a hold of her. She says, okay.
As I kicked out the window, the force of the water was like popping a balloon. It flushed everything and everyone out of our van that wasn't tied down, including now me, McKenna, and Melissa were instantly just sucked into the water. I was tossing and turning in the water like a rag doll. Somehow I wound up on the left-hand shore on my hands and knees and just crawled out. And my legs were like jello. I couldn't even stand. All I did was lift my arms up to heaven and just cry out for God. Just, oh God, oh God. I could barely even talk. My stomach tightened and I threw up everything that I'd ingested. And I called out for Melissa several times. Melissa, Melissa. And I could barely even talk, barely even yell. I looked for our van and couldn't see a thing. I mean, just absolutely nothing. But I looked back towards the freeway and I could see flashing lights, and I knew I had to go for help because there was nothing I could do. And so as fast as my legs would take me, I made my way back to the freeway. I had to climb over a 4-foot barbed wire fence and climb up the 30-foot embankment. And I found a police officer there, and I said, my wife and 4 kids are still down there. I didn't know where they were. I said, they're down there. And he looked at me like disbelief, as if, where'd I come from? How could I possibly have survived that? And eventually an ambulance came, so they sent me in the ambulance. About 1 in the morning, they finally drove through the flooded section, which had now finally gone down, and drove the ambulance to the hospital in Emporia, Kansas. 4 or 5 in the morning, they came to my room, an officer and a chaplain. They had their hats on their chest. And they said, Mr. Rogers, we found your van. And we need to ask you to identify the bodies of your 3 youngest children. They said they are dead. And so I went down with Melissa's brother, had met up with me by that point, and her father. They pulled back the drape. And there before me was Zachary, my little big guy, Nicholas, my buddy boy, Alina, my little sweet pea from China, dead. I mean, cold, lifeless, wet. And all I could do was just collapse over each one of them. I just collapsed over each one of their bodies and draped mine over theirs and stroked their hair and kissed them and groaned and wailed and cried from my gut like I was going to throw up again, like you can't imagine. About 10 in the morning, they came to my room again and said, Mr. Rogers, we found McKenna. And she was a short distance from the van. The van was upside down, about 1.5 miles from the freeway. And McKenna was just a short distance from it. She had evidently caught on a barbed wire fence. And so I had to go down that long hallway once again and into that emergency room and identify Daddy's first little girl. My precious little peanut butter cup, whom I love with all my heart. She had just turned 8 years old. That was the worst day of my life. I lost all 4 of my children in a second. Well, it took 3 whole days until I finally found Melissa. On Tuesday, they came to my room about 7 or 8 in the morning and said, Robert, we found Melissa's purse. Here it is. And we found Melissa. And she's dead.
The body of a missing mom who was swept away by a flash flood has been found. Melissa Rogers, who was driving with her husband and their 4 children on Saturday when the floodwaters struck their vehicle without...
So my love, my life, my friend, who I proposed to on a riverboat in Cincinnati, Ohio, and married in Cincinnati almost 12 years before that, who we had been faithful to and lived a life full of memories and rich family times, a life of no regrets, was gone. My whole world was washed away in an instant.
There were flash floods in Kansas Saturday night.
As much as a foot of rain turned Interstate 35 into raging rapids.
The rising waters trapped the family's minivan against a highway barrier.
In a matter of minutes, Robert Rogers lost everything Saturday night on a dark...
Savor every single precious minute with your spouses and children. Hug and kiss them every day, every morning and every evening. Tell them over and over how much you love them. Snuggle with them at bedtime. Place your hand on their heads and bless them every day as I did.